Find the derivative of y equals the cubed root of x squared times g of x. Then evaluate y prime of 8, where g of 8 is a 4 and g prime of 8 is a negative 1/2. Y here is the product of two functions, one which is known, the cubed root of x squared, one which is unknown, g of x. Let's rewrite that first one as a fractional exponent due to the root. It is x to the second power and third root, so x to the 2/3 times g of x. Since we have a product of functions, we can make use of the product rule for the derivative. Y prime, which can also be called dy dx, will equal to the derivative of the first, power rule, bring the power down and subtract 1 from it. I will call that 3/3. Derivative of the first times the second left alone plus the first left alone times the derivative of the second. I will call that g prime of x. Now let's take a few steps to simplify this before we plug anything in. We have 2/3 x to the 2 minus 3, which is negative 1/3, times g of x plus x to the 2/3 times g prime of x. So y prime, or dy dx, equals, the first term we have a negative exponent. Let's move it to the denominator. The 2 will stay in the numerator. The g of x will stay in the numerator. There's a 3 in the denominator. So we have a 2, we have a g of x, and we have a 3. And that x to the negative 1/3 is going to move to the denominator to become a positive 1/3. Plus x to the 2/3 times g prime of x. We can take one more step and rewrite the fractional exponents as radicals. X to the 1/3 means the cubed root of x to the first power, so the cubed root of x, plus x to the 2/3 means the cubed root of x squared, and then times g prime of x. The next thing we want to do is evaluate y prime of 8. Y prime of 8 means to plug an 8 into each of the x's. So we will have 2 times g of 8 divided by 3 times the cubed root of 8 plus the cubed root of 8 and then squared. Now you can square it before the cubed root or you can square it after. It'll be most likely easier to square it after taking the cubed root, and then times g prime of 8. Now g of 8 and g prime of 8 are going to be found using the information right here. G of 8 is a 4, so we will have 2 times 4 divided by 3 times the cubed root of 8, which is a 2. 2 times 2 times 2 does give us 8. Plus the cubed root of 8 again, which is a 2, quantity squared. And then g prime of 8, which is a negative 1/2. So in the first term, we can cancel a 2 down. We will have 4 over 3. And then we have this added to a 4 times a negative 1/2. So this gives us 4 over 3. And multiplying the numerators, negative 4 over the denominator 2. We can reduce the 4 over 2 to be a negative 2, but we will have to get a common denominator between these two terms so we can combine them to a single fraction. Let's multiply that 2 by 3 over 3. So this will give us 4 over 3 minus, multiply the numerators, 6, denominators of 3. 4 minus 6 is a negative 2 over 3.